Hey, Steven Snyder here from Pitbull Snyder Casting on School of Hollywood.
Hey, welcome, Steve. Known you for many, many years, long before you had the beard.
Yes.
Uh, you're looking great. Um, how did you get started in casting?
Casting by default, I was a working actor for about 17 years. Then we had a strike happen, and I moved behind the camera so that I could learn more about, what I was doing as an actor by volunteering, interning, being an assistant for some casting offices.
So, what mistakes did you find that you were making in your acting once you started casting?
Uh, you know, things like not making it about me, not making it important, but not so important that it got in the way.
Okay. You've done God knows how many music videos of all genres. How many have you done over the years? Estimate.
I stopped counting at 1,700.
Whoa.
So I think probably by now, close to 2,000.
What was the very first music video you cast?
The very first music video I cast, it's hard to really tell, but in the country genre, the first one for the country market was Boogie Woogie Choo Choo Train by the Mavericks.
All right.
It was their first music video, and I think my first country music video. I'll think about that and bring it back for you.
I remember you actually did one with Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yes,
many, many years ago.
many
The
years.
Terminator.
The Terminator, yeah, little homage to the Terminator.
Over the years, what has been some of your favorite music videos that you've cast?
Um, let's see if I can give you the standouts crossing over all genres. The first one for Garth Brooks was Thunder Rolls, and that the ones that I tend to really stand out for me are the ones that have a creative cast that supports the musical performance, such as TLC's Waterfall. That was a good one. Getting the mom and getting the kid and that stuff. And then Metallica's Enter Sandman, where we had a wonderful young 8-year-old boy who is terrific. And later on in the show, you can ask me a question about him and the snakes, because we had snakes, and it was Bump in the Night, scary, scary kind of suspense thriller with several nightmares going through. Michael Jackson's Liberian Girl, Motley Crue's Girls, 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 Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer, Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby's Got Back, REM's Losing My Religion, to name a few.
No, there's some great music videos there. What kind of budget would you say a new band coming out, if they want to try to create something like MTV for casting wise?
Well, once upon a time, they began roughly between like 25 to maybe 60,000. And then with the inroads of directors that went on, like Michael Bay, Wayne Isham, and the other ones, as the music videos reached a popularity where they were showing value, like, with MTV, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got to get more innovative. We can expand on the budgets because we'll see the return on the dollar in regards to concert tickets, building the fan base, like, Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even get a ticket for the show. So, but nowadays, I would probably say if you're doing it down and dirty, in the sense of like, oh, it's guerrilla filmmaking, you're pulling a lot of favors, you're probably still looking at somewhere between 35 and 50,000.
Okay. You've moved also into the indie world of casting. What made you make a choice to go there versus going like the mainstream big movies?
Well, when I first got into casting, I was working for one of the music video companies, and they partnered up with Fox, and that led me to working for Fox for 14 years, 7 years, as a job out, or as the film syndicate, worked for Fox during the high part of the seasons. And then eventually I wound up getting hired by Fox. So that was 14 years of that. Then I had 3 years at Paramount Studios. And, I found with the independents, I got to work with the director or the producer, and I only had to have 1 or 2 masters versus the studio, which, like with Disney, you have to answer to a half a dozen people, and it's really hard to make 6 people happy. So
Yeah.
felt that I can really get on the same page with the director, or if the producer's calling the shots, and that's the casting director's job. You never talk money with the director, you do that with the producer, and then you don't talk with the director about problems, you talk to the producer. So yeah, independent's the best, because my first teen love story, which was dealing with a transgender kid, was 14 years ago. So diversity is something that I've always pushed in the casting, and if I can get the young ones involved, I always get the young ones involved.
You won an Emmy. Tell us about the Emmy you won.
Was working for Fox NFL Sunday, and that was at the kickoff of Fox Sports. And on Fridays, we would have a sketch that would involve the four hosts, which is Terry Bradshaw, Howie Long, Jimmy Johnson, and Jim Brown. And we do things like Terry Bradshaw and Howie Long are driving in a car, kind of like Thelma and Louise male version. They get pulled over by the cop. The cop is played by Eric Estrada from Chips.
Okay.
And then from that led us to, pretty much like casting a feature film in an 8-minute short film, which was based upon the thematic of the old Little Rascals show with all the little kids, putting Terry, Howie, Jim Brown, Terry Bradshaw into a classroom of 5th graders. So they each took on one of the established characters of the Little Rascals, so we filled in around them, like a time machine, going back to when they would have all been in a classroom. And that got nominated and won Best Comedy Short Film with an Emmy Award.
That is awesome, Steve.
The studio got the award. I got the credit.
So you also are an acting coach, and you bring in casting directors, producers, and directors. What makes your workshop different from other ones in Los Angeles?
Well, to begin, early on, as an actor that had made a transition into casting, people that knew me sought me out to help them run lines, just kind of flesh out what was going on with the scene. A few of my buddies were doing workshops, and they would invite me to come guest at the workshop. And my job was to come in and help them break down the scene, figure out the character, figure out what needs to happen to be able to create a good, solid audition or performance. And I did that for a couple of years. And then Leo Rossi contacted me, famed character actor, and said, "Hey, would you like to do a class together?" And I said, "Sure." And then we sat down in a community center with Leo Rossi, myself, and about 6 actors. And we said, "What would you guys like to do?" Because there's a lot of classes in town. And how can myself as a casting director and Leo being a writer, producer, well-known actor, infuse that into a positive, creative environment where actors were encouraged to fail? Because you learn by failing, learn more by my failures than my successes. And now 25 years later, I'm still doing it 4 nights a week on Zoom. And I do that as a way to help actors. So I think what makes this unique in the sense is it's on the job training. 3 out of 4 nights I have a guest, and I try to include myself in 1 out of every 4 classes, so I have time to give the individual work that's needed. So it's merging the business and the creative side and turning that into bookings and auditions that lead to callbacks that lead to getting penned or being put into position and then eventually being hired.
What are some of the biggest things that you work with as far as like actors and techniques in your class?
Well, What I learned and what I try to I try to always incorporate is prior to the long journey out to 40 years in California, I spent 4 years in New York when I wanted to be an actor. And I said, well, where are the actors at? Well, they weren't in Florida, they were in New York. So I had an aunt that lived in Queens, Astoria. She invited me out. I went there and I just immersed myself into every class I could get into with Stella Adler, Sandy Meisner, Uta Hagen, Eric Morris, Herbert Burkhoff, and a few more. And I took what I learned from all of that was everybody's teaching the same thing. It's just a different language or a different approach. You know, the method that people go like, well, what do you teach? And I teach quite simply, suck less, book more. You know, remove all obstacles between you and your success in the work. So, you know, a little bit of Meisner, a little bit of the traditional technique or actor's method. But I think no matter what you do in your preparation, you have to be able to let go. Preparation is before you do the audition. That makes you comfortable in the audition or taking that to set.
So how do actors get into your class?
It's pretty easy. Thanks to a very good friend of mine, if they just Google my name, it'll take them to my Instagram, my email, and certainly we'll give it out here in the class. And I'm very transparent. I do have people that assist me in the casting process and also in the school. But one of the things that bothered me when I was, in acting and training was I always had to go through what they call the class assistant. And I'm going, well, I have a question for my coach. Why can't I talk to my coach? So I removed that obstacle by being very available for actors in class, out of class, and all that stuff. So, contact me, send me your stuff. I will schedule a free audit for you. No strings attached. If you don't want to be there, it doesn't matter what I do. So my goal is to bring you in, see where you're at, see how you're feeling, have a conversation with you about what's not working and what is working with you, so we can focus on removing all obstacles between you and the job.
In case some kids don't know what an audit is, what exactly is that?
Okay, and an audit, I wonder if it comes from, or that maybe where the word audition comes from, because audit is the first half of audition. So an audit means that and my definition of audit may be different from others. When I was in New York, you would audit a class, you would just observe. And that was fine. I'm watching the class, I'm seeing what's going on, but I'm not getting on the field. So from day one, I said, I will not do that. If somebody wants to come and audit my class, I want to give them an opportunity to get up and work, because how am I going to know whether I can truly impact what they're doing if I'm not in a situation where I'm exchanging thoughts, ideas, choices, conversations, and engagement with the actors? And also, I want them to see how they fit in with the creative family.
That's fabulous, Steve. You've had quite a few students that have had success, and actually a couple of them are now gone off and actually become producers from your class.
Yes, it's been. I'll talk about three because I know we have a limited time. Some people went on to work in front of the camera. Some people went on to work behind the camera, and also continue to work in front of the camera. So Bria Grant, as an example, she was launched by my wife, who was managing her, Melanie Sharp, took over her career, which was nowhere. Within a year, less than a year, she had reached all of her goals. Her goals were to be in a horror film. I cast her as one of my main leads in You're So Dead. And then she wanted to work in episodic television, and Melanie got her auditions for a bunch of different TV shows. And then she went on to do Criminal Minds, and this is going Friday Night Lights. And that built her up to the level of her eventual goal was she wanted to be a superhero or a villain on a very popular show called Heroes. And that's a big goal to have for a first-year actor. But in less than a year, she wound up getting hired as Speedster, the Joker to Masioka's, who played the Asian hero. And now, recently, Ratchet Ford, she is the writer, producer, director of a TV series on with Katie Seagal. I can't remember the title of it, but she did pretty good. She's directed 10 different films and TV series. Now
That's awesome.
behind the camera, and when I get asked the question, who is the most successful actor that you ever coached or was in your class? And that would be somebody that at the time wanted to be an actor on film and television, but couldn't get a break in television because she didn't feel she was pretty enough. But she worked regional theater all the time and traveled the country doing regional tours. And her name was Sarah Haley Finn. And Sarah Haley Finn did pretty good for herself because she's at the top of the food chain of Marvel casting.
Exactly.
Yeah. And she still takes my emails and my phone calls. And there was an actor that was from Nigeria when they were doing the first Black Panther. And he came to the table late in the game. And I said, bro, I'm pretty sure they're done shooting. But I said, why don't you write a letter to her office and just mention my name and say you're from Nigeria and that, he's, extremely athletic guy and he would be right for something, a Black Panther. And she actually returned the email and said, hey, nothing we can do on the first one, but definitely come at us early on the sequel, if there is one. At that point, we didn't know if there would be a Wakanda Forever. And then the third one, very popular, Jake Borelli. Jake Borelli this past year was on 3 series simultaneously. And it was a long journey for Jake because he studied with me for a year and a half. I put him in the first pilot that he ever did for Disney called The Five Families. And then he went to New York and now is on Station 19, Grey's Anatomy. And there's another show that he is the series love interest on. So not bad. So, those are 3 examples.
Great. So what is your Instagram so people can follow you?
I have to look it up. Let me look it up. I think it's at Pitbull. I think it's at Pitbull. Let me check it. I'm trying to get better with technology. And on that note, it's something that every actor needs to do. All right. So I'm at my Instagram. Yeah, it's a Pitbull dude.
All right. A Pitbull dude. Yeah. So people will be able to find you. It disappears with your blue screen.
Yeah. But I think technology. But feel free to connect me if I'm wrong, but I think it's A Pitbull dude, all lowercase.
All right.
Or is that at Instagram or,
they'll find you.
One of my personal goals this year, and I would love to talk a little bit about technology and moving forward as actors and artists, is to embrace it. In fact, Mr. Owens here was the guy that said, bro, you got to get on this computer thing 100 years ago. And I said, okay, because if you fight the internet and the internet represents technology for getting work, then, if you don't embrace it, you're going to get left behind.
Fabulous. And a great way to end, Steve. Thank you for being on The School of Hollywood today.
Well, thank you so much. And God bless you guys. And just on a final note, believe in yourselves, figure out what it is you want to do, and then find the steps to get there. And if you happen to watch the Golden Globes last night, one of the things that was said was, this was 10 years, this was 20 years, this was 40 years, but it was well worth the wait. So just keep doing what you do and believe in yourselves.
Fabulous.